Good evening, distinguished virtual participants. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome to India House the head of the Indian Diplomatic Service, Foreign Secretary Mr. Vardhan Shringla, on his first official visit to the UK. His visit is at a key juncture when India and the UK are on the cusp of a new post-COVID, post-Brexit era. We are consulting on a new roadmap for the way forward towards our common goals. The roadmap, of course, is guided by the shared vision of our two honorable Prime Ministers who have identified our common reprioritized agenda to realize the aspirations of our two peoples and also for a better world. It is, of course, a turning point in the history of the UK as it develops a global Britain policy, and we are aware that the UK government is currently engaged in an internal integrated review, including of its foreign and trade policy. And India too is at a crucial juncture. The words of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji on October 29th, a few days ago, come to my mind, and I quote, "So what if we could not move at the desired pace this year due to the pandemic? We will try and run faster in the next year to make up for the loss. Nothing great ever gets done if we are deterred by obstacles in our path. By not aspiring, we guarantee failure. India is the third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. We want India to become the third largest in terms of current US dollar prices as well. The 5 trillion target will help us achieve that," unquote. As an envoy of India in the UK, I'm greatly enthused that key advisors to the Honorable Prime Minister of the UK who are advising him in the process, the integrated review process, would like to see relations with India move to a transformative phase, result-oriented, more consultative on issues of common interest, and collaborative in international fora as we seek to safeguard and strengthen multilateralism. In order to inform and involve friends and well-wishers of India as we progress along the milestones, High Commission of India, in partnership with India Inc., has the pleasure to relaunch Global Dialogue Series fittingly with a conversation with Foreign Secretary Mr. Vardhan Shringla on Global India, Self-Reliant India, Opportunities in a New World Order. With these words, I give you Foreign Secretary Mr. Vardhan Shringla in conversation with Shri Manoj Ladva. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, High Commissioner, for those words. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to what promises to be an insightful session where we will hear from India's senior-most diplomat sharing his perspectives on various facets of India's foreign policy in these challenging times. And in particular, India's relationship with the United Kingdom. Foreign Secretary, welcome. And thank you ever so much for sparing the time this afternoon. I know you've had a very hectic and schedule over the past few days. But we've received quite a few questions by video, and there's been a tremendous amount of interest in your visit here to the UK. So welcome once again, and it's great to have you with us here. Foreign Secretary, I'm going to start off by asking a question which I'm sure is on the minds of everybody watching here this afternoon. And I guess in many ways you've had the best possible vantage point in being India's ambassador to Washington until you took over this job. So the question I have is simply, what do you make of the US presidential elections?
Well, Manoj, let me start by saying how delighted I am to be here in London, in the UK, I want to thank you for hosting this show. We last met in Washington, D.C. We had spoken about a lot of plans, and it's wonderful to see you in your element in your city of London. I also want to thank the High Commissioner for her remarks and for arranging what has been a very, very comprehensive program in the UK at very short notice. We were all quite preoccupied last night with the US elections. We still haven't seen the end game in the elections. As we watched television before coming down, it wasn't clear to us as to who would emerge from this contest as the next president of the United States. Clearly, it's a very close contest, and I think there's some more excitement in store for us before we get the final result. As far as we are concerned, we do believe that our relationship with the United States has come a long way. Today, we have what we call a comprehensive global strategic partnership. Our two countries cooperate across the board on a wide range of issues starting from defense and security, going into technology and innovation, trade and investments, and of course, people-to-people contacts. We have definitely crossed that tipping point in which the relations could be affected one way or the other. We do believe that irrespective of the political dispensation in power in Washington or in New Delhi, our relations with the United States will continue to be strong and robust, even stronger and even more robust as we go along. In DC, I've sort of worked both sides of the political divide. I've found extraordinary bipartisan support for what we do.
Yes, and that's what. Sorry, Foreign Secretary. That's something that's been apparent over the last few weeks and months. That both sides of the divide have been extremely keen to engage both the Indian diaspora, but also reflect on the relationship with India. And so that's been a striking observation for many of us, this side of the pond as well. And I do want to bring you to this side of the pond. And this has been quite a hectic visit. You've visited three major European capitals, Paris, Berlin, and London. And forgive me for asking this, but we're in the midst of a pandemic. The results of the US elections are not quite known yet. And the Brexit negotiations are still on. So I guess the question is, why now, Foreign Secretary?
Well, you're absolutely right. I'm visiting in unusual circumstances. We are dealing with the COVID crisis both in India and in Europe. I haven't been out of India except within our neighborhood since we started dealing with the pandemic. But New Delhi felt that this is an opportune time to come down because it was important for us to touch base with our principal interlocutors. With the United States, we had three important engagements in the month of October, culminating in the 2+2 ministerial. But we felt that engaging with Europe is very important. And so I visited our three main partners in Europe. There's no substitute for direct contact. We've been speaking to each other. I've spoken to my counterparts in all countries virtually. It's not the same thing as coming down here. Thanks to our High Commissioner, Gayatri Kumar, we've had an extraordinary program meeting people across the board. We've met policymakers, politicians, members of the Indian community, members of Parliament, we met our counterparts in the Foreign Office, but also the Prime Minister's office. So it's been quite a wide range of contacts that we have had. It gave me an opportunity to articulate how we see, the geopolitical situation in the wake of the COVID crisis, sort of changed thinking both within India and our region. Post-Brexit gives us an extraordinary opportunity to reset our ties with the UK, to see how we can recalibrate our institutional cooperation and seek what our prime ministers see as a transformative relationship. And there's no reason why we can't do that. UK is a country with whom we have strong historical ties, but also a country that, in terms of economy, provides us with complementarities that we don't, that we may not always get elsewhere. We also have a tremendous advantage that we have a vibrant community of Indian origin here and British nationals, but who have the ability to be what our Prime Minister described as a living bridge between our two countries. And you exemplify that. You are committed to a strong relationship. We see that there are. Yesterday, I called on the Honorable Home Secretary. Again, a charismatic leader, very committed to the relationship. I met Lord Tariq Ahmed at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Today, we met Lord Popert and Lord Rami Ranger. We met Lord Karan Moria. I mean, I'm just saying that we have come across many stalwarts in the community who were committed to getting the relationship into a fast gear and a fast track. And all we need to do is to work with this, with the community in order to get things moving.
Indeed. And you rightly talk of both the living bridge, but also the strength that brings to the relationship. And I want to now bring us to the topic of strength and a phrase that Prime Minister Modi has recently used of Atmanirbhar Bharat, that quest for a self-resilient India. And forgive me for asking this, but a lot of people have been concerned as to how one reconciles this strident self-resilient agenda on the one side and the more global, more open, more liberalized Indian narrative that Prime Minister Modi has worked on so hard since coming to office in 2014. So how does one, sitting here in London, either as an investor or in policy, reconcile the two?
Well, the policy of Atmanirbharta or self-reliance has to be seen in the context of the COVID crisis. This has been the worst crisis that has afflicted mankind since the Second World War. We haven't yet fully understood the extent and the dimensions of this crisis, not only in terms of the loss of humanity, loss of our citizens, but also in terms of the economic impact of this crisis. And in that context, I think the Prime Minister, what he enunciated was a policy that would enable us to gain confidence, that would enable us to create the capacities, that would enable us to not only help ourselves, but help other countries in the world. I'll give you an example. As soon as we entered into the crisis, we found that we were short of the very health-related equipment that we should have had to deal with this sort of crisis: PPEs, masks, test kits, ventilators. We had to scramble to source these from different parts of the world. But what we did was there is a certain resilience within us, which made us, let's say, innovate. Automobile manufacturers were asked to manufacture ventilators. Many of our companies ramped up their production of these items, and I'm happy to say today, under the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, we are not only producing enough of these health-related equipment for ourselves, but we are able to provide these to countries all over the world. But just to give you an example, when we started with COVID-19, we had 16,000 ventilators in hospitals in India. We now propose to have 500,000 ventilators in hospitals. So we have ramped up the ability of our health system to deal with crises of this nature. So when you talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, it really means having the capacity to deal with this, not only to deal with it yourself, but to produce enough for the rest of the world. You will recall that when we first again had this situation, there was a concern that we could be short of medicines. We are considered to be the pharmacy of the world. India supplies medicines to countries all over the world. There was a huge demand for medicines like hydroxychloroquine, which many countries felt was the cure for COVID-19. We ensured that, again, production was increased, that we had sources of API, and that we were able to provide these medicines to over 150 countries, and half of them, at least half of them, on cost or on gratis basis.
Well, the UK is a great example of the supply of this basic medicine, paracetamol. 95% of all paracetamol in this country comes from India, and it was only during COVID that we actually realized the dependency on India for this very basic medicine. And I guess it underlined how India is the pharmacy of the world and highlighted that to the rest of the world. So COVID has highlighted a lot of amazing strengths about India, which perhaps the rest of the world weren't always as conscious of. And the way in which you've described Atmanirbhar Bharat, or a self-reliant Bharat, is, I guess, more about integrating, India being prepared in a way where it can fully integrate into the global supply chains as well, which is something, a conversation that many people have been having over the last few weeks, that exactly how that would run out. Foreign Secretary, I want to now turn to some of our guests who would have otherwise been here and wanted to meet you in person and discuss various aspects of India's foreign policy in person. Sorry.
Can I just complete my train of thoughts on the issue of Atmanirbhar?
Yes, please.
You see, one of the important areas that we have collaboration going with the UK is in the vaccine development.
Indeed.
As you know, India produces 60% of the world's vaccines. At this point, we have 3 candidate vaccines, and one of which is a collaboration between Serum Institute and AstraZeneca, Oxford. And that's an important part of the collaboration with the UK. In vaccines, we are part of the Gavi Alliance. Our Prime Minister spoke at the Gavi Summit that was organized by Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Now, when it comes to vaccine, our Prime Minister has stated in the UN that India will make vaccines accessible at affordable rates to the entire world. In other words, we will be at the forefront of providing vaccines. That's a very generous statement, considering that a lot of countries are clamoring for the vaccine. But it is in keeping with our concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. It's an ancient concept, but the philosophy remains valid today. What we are trying to do is to ensure that we have enough capacity production to be able to meet the requirements not only of our population, beginning, of course, with vulnerable sections, but also to tie up with our neighbors, with other developing countries and partners to ensure that this goes across. We've already started discussing human trials with our neighbors. And I think it's important that at a time of a crisis of this nature, in keeping with our Prime Minister's vision, we share what we have. We don't become inward-looking. On the contrary, Atmanirbharta means we become more giving, more sharing, but for that we need the capacity, we need the confidence, and we need the ability to be able to go out and help others.
Thank you very much, Foreign Secretary. That was, I'm pleased that you raised the issue of vaccines, and I can only imagine the huge challenge going forwards. One is, of course, in getting the vaccine, and then the logistical challenge of getting it around the world. But that, again, underlines India's intent to be fully integrated into the global supply chain. And I think everybody has their fingers crossed and looking forward to some great news very, very soon as well. I'd now like to turn to Lord Jitesh Kadia, who is a board member of UK Government Investments, for his question.
Good afternoon and a warm welcome, Foreign Secretary, to the United Kingdom. We are delighted to see you here and hope you have productive discussions to advance the unique partnership between the UK and India. As you know, the Indian diaspora in this country numbers over 1.5 million people and makes an outsized contribution to all walks of British life. It has appropriately been called the living bridge by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a metaphor for the two-way traffic in people, language, sport, culture and commerce between our two countries. We saw the power of this connect when Prime Minister Modi packed out Wembley Stadium during his 2015 visit to the UK. Whilst the Government of India has done much to harness the potential of the global Indian diaspora, many of us feel that this X factor in our bilateral relationship is still underutilized. So my question to you is, how can India, and indeed the UK, properly harness the potential of having such an important and vibrant living bridge between our two nations?
Well, thank you, Lord Guardia. I think that's a very relevant question. I can give you the analogy of the United States where I was there, as Manojji said a short while ago. We were together in Houston, where we saw the Indian community welcoming the Prime Minister in the Howdy Modi show. You can imagine 50,000 or more US citizens of Indian origin had filled that stadium. It was an incredible sight, an incredible sense of confidence, watched by each and every individual back at home in India. And it was a great moment for all of us. And what does it imply? It means that the community of Indian origin in the United States has put its efforts behind a strong India-US relationship. I've always relied on the community in the US to deliver on issues that were very important to us. And I have no doubt that our High Commissioner, Ms. Gayatri Kumar, is doing the same thing in London. I think we have an extraordinary community of Indian origin here. I mentioned earlier that we, have not only 4 ministers in the current cabinet of Prime Minister Boris Johnson, but we also have an extraordinary range of people who are in all walks of life, in business, in commerce, industry, government, civil service. And I think it's a great advantage for us if we would need to use that potential. I mean that in a positive sense of the term. The Indian community has an advantage of knowing both sides, knowing the UK, knowing India. We are looking at technology innovations. We're looking at supporting startups. We're looking at financing proposals. I think there is no better link for this than the living bridge that Lord Guardia described in securing for us the objectives of a transformative Indo-UK partnership.
Yes, and he also used the phrase "the X factor," which I thought was a great phrase to use as well in describing the diaspora. The second question we have from another eminent person of Indian origin is Baroness Usha Prashar. She is the chair of FICCI, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry here in the UK. Baroness Prashar.
Hello, Foreign Secretary, and a very warm welcome. My question is about education. The new education policy was announced by the Government of India in July this year, and it is indeed visionary and impressive. Rightly, its aim is to make the education system more contemporary and skills orientated. But what steps are you taking to make it a reality? And what kind of collaborations and partnerships are you seeking with the further and higher education institutions in the UK?
Thank you, Baroness Prashad. That's a very relevant question in today's context. You're aware that we have 65% of our population is below 35 years of age. We are a young country, but it also means we're an aspirational country. We have to provide for 1 million people who come into the job market every month. There is a lot of importance given to skills development, to building capacities of our younger people and our youth. In that context, a new education policy that reflects contemporary realities, that provides for modes of education that are increasingly, I think, possible due to enhanced communication, due to the internet, extensive, let's say, internet availability in India due to the Digital India program for Prime Minister. In that context, I think a new education policy is one that would certainly enable our youth to find their place in the 21st century. One of the very important aspects of this, which is very relevant to audiences abroad, is that for the first time we are allowing foreign universities to set up campuses in India, to have collaborations in India. You asked what is the operational objectives. I think one of them is to have the top 100 universities come into India. I think here there's a great advantage, great possibility for Indo-UK cooperation. Some of the best universities and centers and institutes of higher education are in the UK. A lot of Indian students come here to let's say, for higher education and to gain knowledge. I think much of this can actually now be provided through collaborations and tie-ups with educational institutions in the UK. It also fosters greater R&D, research, greater exchanges between faculty. And I think, we've opened up a new realm of possibility in the education sector. Our ambition is to become the superpower of education. It's not a very, I would say, far-fetched idea, considering that we are such a young nation and we have the potentials to do that. And we look forward to working with all concerned, particularly the Indian diaspora in the UK and the US and other countries, in realizing the vision of a new education policy.
Well, with that vision, I can also visualize in the not too distant future long queues of students clamoring for Indian visas to come and study in India as well. And and again, something that many people have said to me, that this was a reform that was much needed, and it holds a lot of opportunity for the future as well. Now, moving on to the next prominent person of Indian origin, and somebody who heads up the Confederation of British Industry, the president of the Confederation of British Industry, Lord Karan Billy-Moria.
Foreign Secretary, it's great to have you here in the UK with us. As the founding chair of the UK-India Business Council, chairman of Cobra Beer, and president of the Confederation of British Industry, I've been a great believer in the potential of trade business between the UK and India. At the moment, we're just scratching the surface. What are your views on the future potential of a free trade deal between the UK and India in the near future, and linked to that, the increase in mobility from a business point of view, students, academics, and tourists between our two great countries? Thank you.
Lord Billy-Moria, and it's good to see you again. Met last evening. From our perspective, I think trade and investments are low-hanging fruits. We are at about $15 billion of bilateral trade. The potential is far greater. I believe both our sides are working to develop institutional arrangements that could provide significant momentum to our trade and investment ties. We've just had the JETCO meeting. Minister has just had his interaction. Commerce Minister has interaction with his counterpart here. We are looking at a free trade agreement or a preferential trade agreement with a sort of an early harvest limited agreement that can bring quick benefits to businesses in both our countries. Subsequently, we will enter into negotiations for a free trade agreement or a preferential trade agreement, and I think this is a win-win situation for both countries. We also have the proposal on the table for a mobility and migration agreement, which is essentially designed to ensure that there is flexibility in the movement of professionals. The UK could need, say, health professionals. You might need professionals in the IT sector. You might need people in the aviation sector. I'm just giving you examples. We could need professionals from here. It enables the movement of professionals in an organized manner without the, let's say, implications of residency, a long-term settlement in the UK. It will cut into illegal immigration, which is currently a concern with the Home Department. And I think on the whole will give us significant advantages in our businesses, because many of our businesses also rely on getting sort of professional manpower availability. I think some of these ideas can take our two countries significantly forward. But as I said, I want to make it clear that these are only ideas. These are concepts. These are on our drawing board, and we are currently working on a blueprint, what we call a Roadmap 360, that would define India-UK cooperation over the next decade or two. So it's a long-term plan, but I think we need to bring in an institutional framework that would provide for a very, very strong partnership in trade and investment.
This is quite encouraging because for some time now, as you may know, I've been saying that we should stop talking about a special relationship between the UK and India because there already exists one, but talk more in terms of the depth and breadth of the relationship. And some of the things that you've mentioned here really strike at the heart of a really strong strategic cooperation between the two countries, and it's quite encouraging. But I do want to probe you a little bit, and Commerce Minister Goyal has been quite vocal over the last few months in relation to an early harvest agreement. And my question is around timescales. Do you have any indication of when an early harvest agreement could be possible between the UK and India, and if there are any particular stumbling blocks that you think that need to be removed?
Well, my sense is that when we talk about an early harvest, we're looking at those items on the, let's say, on the trade list that neither side has any encumbrances on. In other words, there are no domestic issues linked to those items. There are no sensitivities in either country. And if you can identify a certain number of those items, which I'm sure both countries can, then we have the makings of this early harvest agreement that can bring, as I said, quick benefits. But in terms of time frame, that is difficult to say because that depends on the negotiators. The fact that our Commerce and Industry Minister himself is engaged, so the Trade Minister from your side indicates the importance that we attach to it. We have a schedule of visits. We are looking forward to the visit of Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab to India in December. When our Prime Minister spoke to Prime Minister Johnson in March this year, just before the lockdown, he invited him to visit India. Of course, COVID-19 intervened, but at some stage and through mutually agreed channels, we would work out the possibilities of a visit at the summit level. And in all of these visits, we need to ensure that we are working very steadily towards those goals and objectives that Lord William Oria and our other interlocutors just spoke about.
So in summary, a very firm watch this space is the answer.
Absolutely. You'll have to look to High Commissioner Gayatri Kumar for delivery in that regard.
Absolutely. I'm now going to turn to Louise Donaghy. She's the Senior Vice President for India at RollsRoyce, which is one of the UK's leading listed companies. Louise.
Thank you, Manoj. Foreign Secretary, welcome to the UK. As you may know, Rolls-Royce has been in India for many decades, and we are proud to provide the power to protect to the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy. In 2015, Prime Minister Modi and David Cameron signed an agreement for our nations to co-develop defence technology. At Rolls-Royce, we'd like to see this aspiration become reality and develop new jet engine technology with India. How do you see the opportunities for British companies like ourselves to partner with India to truly realise the aspiration of self-reliance in defence for India?
Well, thank you. Rolls-Royce has been a very important interlocutor, has been a very active participant in our industrial development, both on the civil side and the defense side. I certainly see a lot of potentials in the development of an engine jointly with Rolls-Royce because we are looking at enormous and exponential growth in sectors that we're talking about, in the aviation industry, in the defense industry. A lot of this is also linked to our own priorities to try and get joint manufacturing, joint R&D, joint technology transfers, work on technology jointly. And of course, in that context, it is also a part of not only our Make in India program, Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar program, and I think here Rolls-Royce can certainly do a great deal to fit into that program. I do believe that, and this conversation was there earlier as well when we met representatives of industry, that this can also be supplemented or supported by a G2G dialogue in which we can see how we can support industrial initiatives of this nature reach their logical conclusion.
Yes, and one of the facets of the trust between the UK and India, the depth of that trust is in the 2015 understanding between Prime Minister Cameron and Prime Minister Modi on the joint development of intellectual property and technologies in the defence sector, which is something you don't see vis-a-vis other countries as much. And I think there's a lot of scope, as you've said, for collaboration there. As well. We're going to hit the ball around the park a bit, to use a cricketing phrase, and I'd like to call now upon Lord Jonathan Marland, who's the chair of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council.
Good morning, Minister, and so nice to see you virtually, and of course we're so sorry not to be able to see you in the flesh. I hope your visit is going well. Most of us are yearning for the warmth of India at the moment, when you've chosen the cold, wet, the United Kingdom. As you know, the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council is a networking organisation bringing together business and trade from across the Commonwealth. We are successfully carrying out webinars every week, linking the Commonwealth in various business classes. Last week we had a webinar on the legal profession. We've also had in conversations with various heads of state and leaders from in the Commonwealth. My question for you, Excellency, is it is probably fair to say that India has not fully embraced the Commonwealth opportunity. I think that at times you've been reluctant to grasp the opportunity. Indians are represented through every Commonwealth country, all 54 of them. It is a third of the world's population. Of course, your own country is the largest. But my question to you is, why has India been reluctant? Is this now not the time when India can show real leadership as we come out of this COVID crisis and people are looking to see how they can regenerate their economies? And what can we do to help to enable India to take up this mantle? So please, I apologise for my bluntness, but please, I would much enjoy to hear your response.
The Foreign Secretary, I must add that this was probably the first time ever that I've heard Lord Marland apologise for his bluntness.
Well, thank you, Lord Marland. The weather has been cool, but the welcome has been very, very warm, I can assure you, in London and in the UK. The Commonwealth has been a very, very important Commonwealth. One of the advantages of the Commonwealth is that it also brings together countries that range from small island states in the Pacific region to countries in Africa, and it gives you a platform in which at one go you can reach out to a very large number of countries. So we appreciate the Commonwealth's grouping. We appreciate the opportunities it provides us. The Commonwealth Secretariat is actively engaged in fostering cooperation among Commonwealth countries. We have had a program that specifically was focused on capacity building of small island states in the Commonwealth. We had allocated significant resources for that. There are many other programs that are linked to capacity building, that are linked to training. And business is one of those, I would say, spin-offs of the Commonwealth that we should be exploiting. I mean, if we are not doing that, we should be doing more to ensure that Commonwealth businesses come together, that we see opportunities through this platform, and the Commonwealth Business Chamber does provide those opportunities, and we are more than happy to see how we can work with the Chamber in achieving our larger and mutual objectives.
Okay, good. I'm now going to turn to David Cornell, who's the Managing Director of Avendus Capital.
Sir, Foreign Minister, good evening and a warm welcome to a wet and windy autumnal England. My name is David Cornell and I'm the Managing Director of Ocean Dial Asset Management, a UK business owned by Vendors Capital, a leading financial services company based in Mumbai. We provide equity exposure to India's economic opportunity for a wide range of investment institutions globally, and we're passionate in our conviction that India represents the most exciting opportunity for global investors, particularly following a period of structural reform under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. I'm also passionate about the role that the City of London can play in supporting India's future development. It is Europe's largest capital market and the preferred international listing venue for companies at all stages of growth and of all sizes. It is at the heart of global markets, and not least because of its ongoing relationship with corporate India. To date, Indian companies have raised over $14 billion of equity capital on the London Stock Exchange, the largest amount of any Asian country. London is at the forefront of the internationalisation of the rupee through the issuance of masala bonds, and in terms of the number of Asian-based companies, it is only second to Japan in terms of the amount of debt finance that's been raised through the City of London. It is therefore the only real global bridge to fast-growing economies, and there is none faster than India's. I expect and hope that it will remain at the centre of raising capital for India's development in the future, as we look forward to an exciting time ahead. Main, London Main, Aapka Swagat Karta Hoon.
बहुत धन्यवाद श्री Cornell. We're very cognizant of the fact that London is the financial capital of the world. I think we today have the opportunities to leverage financing from the UK at rates that are very competitive, and some of it has already been channelized and invested into India. What I want to say is that even during the COVID crisis, we have maintained the competitivity of our economic policies that will enable increased investments, enhanced interest in manufacturing and other activities in India, for which financing is an important prerequisite. There are 3 or 4 areas in which we have sought liberalization to liberalize our sectors. One of them is labor. As you know, there were 144 labor laws in India. We have codified them under 4 codes. In other words, it is much easier for an investor today to set up shop in India and deal with labor than it was before. The regulatory framework is easier and much less cumbersome. The second area is in the sector of mining and coal, where important reforms have taken place. The third is agriculture, which has, I think, freed up the sector in terms of both production and government procurement. And of course, in the defense sector, where the foreign direct investments have, the rate has been increased from 49% to 74%, which means a foreign investor can take a 74% stake in the defense sector manufacturing in India, which is significant. But what is most important for investors like yourself, Mr. Cornell, is the fact that our corporate taxation rate has come down to 15%, which is one of the lowest in the world. And this has produced results because, as our Prime Minister pointed out in an interview the other day, foreign direct investments into India and for the period from April to August 2020, which is the worst period of the COVID-19 outbreak, amounted to $35.73 billion, which is a 13% increase over the same period in the previous year when we didn't have COVID. I think investors are bullish on India. The environment clearly is continuing to liberalize, and we have also, in terms of the ease of doing business with India, you've seen we have come down from 149th position in the world to a global position of something like 63. So we continue to strive to make India a more competitive destination, one where investors can make sure that the returns are commensurate to their expectations, and we do recognize that UK in general and London in particular is an important stop in that regard.
You've created a problem for me, Foreign Secretary, because the next 3 questions you've answered all in that one question. We had a question from Richard Heald on the opportunities for UK companies under the self-reliant mission, and in particular he was complimenting the ease of doing business rankings that India has been doing so well in. We had Mohit Joshi, who was asking about the opportunities for collaboration in fintech, and I think partly you answered that in the response to David Cornell's question. And Jason Vora of the West Midlands India Partnership was asking about the reforms in the agricultural sector. I do want to just probe a little bit on the agricultural sector and the reforms that have taken place, and something I think the viewers will find of interest, because these have been quite significant and radical reforms. And Jason Vora was complimenting the government of India. He is in the food industry himself. And I guess it's, again, the point about integrating into the global supply chain. So if you could just comment upon those agricultural reforms as well, and what that would mean for foreign investors.
Well, I mean, what government has done is that it has ensured that, the government support, which is the minimum support price, has consistently increased so that farmers can get a reasonable remuneration. At the same time, it has ensured that production can also increase and farmers can access better prices for their produce. This year, we've had a record production. But one factor has been important in this regard is that during COVID, during the period of the lockdown, we provided 6 months of rations to needy families. As a result of that, the silos, food silos that were full, were in some senses emptied out before that crop could get spoiled. And the next harvest, we were ready to receive whatever surplus was there. So agricultural reforms are a very important part of the liberalization process. I think the farmer has benefited. It also provides for cold chains, access to markets, retail markets, use of digital online platforms to get remunerative prices beyond the minimum support price. And I think that is good news for both the farmer as well as the market.
Thank you very much, Foreign Secretary. I'm conscious that you've got an hour and a half to catch your flight back to Delhi, and London traffic is quite notorious at this time, especially as we're going into lockdown later on tonight. So I'd like to once again thank you so much for your time and for your insights. I'm sure all those joining us this afternoon will have found it of immense interest. I'd also like to thank the High Commissioner for being such a gracious host and for setting the scene so eloquently earlier on. At India Inc., we look forward to many such conversations, helping to shine a light on important moments like these, and also on important issues affecting India and its globalization. So thank you very much, Foreign Secretary. Thank you very much, High Commissioner. A very, very good evening to everyone. Please do stay safe and keep smiling. Thank you very much.
Thank you.